Leora stared into the void. The stars were gone. Or maybe they had always been gone and she had only believed in their light out of habit. Her small shuttle drifted among the ruins of the Asphodel system, a place that had once thrummed with life, commerce, and laughter. Now it was ash, a scar across the galaxy where only the echoes of a civilization that had dared to dream remained. Her hands trembled on the controls. Warning lights blinked harshly in red and yellow, reflecting on her pale face. Silence pressed against her chest, heavy and unyielding. She remembered her family, her friends, the warm corridors of the spaceport where she had grown up. And she remembered the day it all burned, the day the invaders came with their fleets like black waves swallowing the horizon. Leora, she whispered, though there was no one to hear her. Her name tasted bitter like smoke and regret. The galaxy had taken everything, her home, her planet, the laughter of her childhood. Everything except one stubborn ember that clung to her heart, her will. She remembered the stories her mother had told her, of humanity's stubborn tenacity, of worlds lost to plague, war, or famine, yet people refusing to vanish quietly. They rebuilt. They reached for the stars. Somewhere in her chest, Leora realized the same fire still burned. The galaxy might have taken her past, but it could not take her spirit. The first thing she did was survive. Her shuttle was damaged, but it still moved. She set a course for the nearest known settlement, Vera Station, a hub for wanderers, exiles, and those who refused to bow to fate. The journey was long, lonely, filled with the hum of failing engines and the quiet despair of loss. But she clung to her memory of life before the fire, letting it guide her through the endless dark. As days passed, Leora began speaking to herself, recounting her plans, her doubts, her tiny victories. She found solace in routine, repairing the ship, mapping sectors, rationing food. Her mind was a battlefield, a constant tug-of-war between grief and determination, and each night as she floated through black space, she allowed herself one act of defiance. She wrote. On scraps of digital paper, she recorded her thoughts, her dreams, her anger. She wrote not for anyone else, but because the act of creation reminded her that she still mattered, that she still existed. When she finally reached Vera Station, relief and caution warred inside her. The station hung like a silver ring around a small dying planet, its lights flickering like a heartbeat. As she docked and stepped onto the worn corridors, she realized survival alone was not enough. The station brimmed with other survivors, each carrying scars and stories of loss. Some avoided her eyes. Others stared with curiosity tinged with suspicion. She knew the unspoken rule. Only the strongest endured. Her first contact was a man named Kale, a former engineer who had seen more destruction than he could admit. He studied her with careful eyes, measuring her resilience. "You've been through fire," he said quietly, almost as a statement of fact. "Not everyone comes out with their will intact." Leora nodded. She didn't explain. Her silence spoke volumes. The galaxy had tried to break her, to erase her. But the ember in her heart flared brighter under the scrutiny of someone who understood. That ember, her will to rewrite, to reclaim, to endure, was what set her apart. In the weeks that followed, she began gathering information, piecing together what remained of the Asphodel system and its neighbors. Maps, old records, rumors whispered in the station corridors. Every fragment mattered. Every detail was a weapon against the oblivion that had consumed her world. And in the quiet hours, when the station lights dimmed and the galaxy outside stretched infinite and empty, Leora allowed herself one thought. She would not merely survive. She would rise. She would rewrite the story the galaxy had tried to end, because even when everything is lost, the human spirit, her spirit, remains unyielding. Vera Station was alive in its own broken way. Its corridors buzzed with whispers of survival, of past worlds lost and lives rebuilt from ash. Leora wandered through them like a shadow, observing without revealing herself. Every face she passed was a story, every scar a testament to endurance. But she had no time for idle curiosity. She needed knowledge. She needed to understand how the galaxy had fallen, and how she could begin to reclaim it. Her first encounter outside her quarters was with a small group of scavengers. They were quick, sharp-eyed, and cautious, as if mistrust was the only currency that mattered here. One of them, a woman named Saren, noticed Leora's hesitation. "You're not like the others," Saren said. Her voice was smooth but edged with steel. "You carry fire in your eyes. Leora's lips tightened and she looked away. She didn't answer, but the ember in her chest stirred. She had survived fire before, and she could endure scrutiny now. Siren's observation was not a threat, it was recognition, and for the first time since the Asphodel system's destruction, Leora felt something familiar. Connection. Days turned into weeks, as Leora pieced together the scattered remnants of knowledge. Ancient maps whispered rumors of fleets that moved like shadows, and fragmented logs from lost worlds all painted a grim portrait. The galaxy had been caught in a tide of relentless expansion by an unknown force, one that consumed planets as easily as a storm consumes leaves. Entire civilizations had vanished, and yet, humanity, she realized, had endured. Kale became her guide in this new life, not just as an engineer, but as a chronicler of survival. He taught her to read the patterns in scattered star charts, to understand the flow of fleets and the movement of power across sectors. Information is as valuable as fuel, he reminded her. Without it, you drift like space debris, forgotten. Leora absorbed every word, every technique, like a student whose life depended on learning. Her nights were spent at the ship, repairing engines, refining navigation systems, and testing the limits of what remained intact. Her days were spent in the station, collecting stories, studying the fragmented galaxy, and learning the unspoken rules of survival among survivors. But even amid routine and learning, the ghosts of her past haunted her. Memories of laughter in Asphodel's corridors, the warmth of her family, the scent of burning fields, these would not fade. They clawed at her heart, reminding her that survival alone could never satisfy the hunger she felt for justice, for restoration, and yet Leora refused to allow despair to claim her. Every memory of loss became fuel, a sharp edge that she carried into every decision. One evening, as the station lights dimmed and the void outside stretched infinite and silent, Leora confronted her reflection in the metal wall of the docking bay. Her eyes, once soft with hope, now glimmered with resolve. She realized that the galaxy had tried to erase her past, her identity, even her humanity, but it could not erase choice. It could not erase the will to act. She made her first declaration, not to the galaxy, not to the station, but to herself. She would not be a survivor only. She would be a creator, a fighter, a force that could carve light out of darkness. If the galaxy had claimed everything she loved, she would reclaim it piece by piece, rewriting history with hands that refused to tremble. The next morning, she approached Saren and Kale with a plan. "I want to go beyond the known sectors," she said, her voice steady. "I want to trace the path of those who destroyed Asphodel. I want to understand them, and find a way to stop them." They exchanged glances, a mixture of caution and admiration. Venturing into uncharted space was dangerous, sometimes fatal. But neither questioned her resolve. In that station, amid scars and whispers, Leora had become something more than a refugee. She had become a spark of resistance, a flame daring to burn in the endless dark. As her shuttle hummed back to life, the stars returning to the viewport like distant promises, Leora felt the weight of her mission settle across her shoulders. The galaxy had taken much, but not her courage. It had taken her home, but not her vision. And it had tried to silence her, but not her fire. Leora's journey was beginning, and for the first time since the destruction of Asphodel, she felt not fear, but determination. The galaxy had taken everything, but it would never take her will to rewrite it. The engines of Leora's shuttle thrummed with a rhythm that was almost alive. Beyond the protective rings of Vera Station, the void stretched endlessly, black and indifferent. Every star she passed seemed distant, almost mocking, as if the galaxy itself questioned her audacity. But Leora did not falter. Her hands gripped the controls with quiet determination, her eyes reflecting the pale glimmer of distant suns. She had prepared for months, yet nothing could fully ready her for the emptiness beyond charted sectors. Space was not silent, it was patient. It listened, it waited, and Leora felt it pressing against her mind, testing her resolve. Memories of Asphodel flashed like lightning. The laughter of her family, the burning fields, the smoke rising into the night sky. She swallowed the ache and pressed forward, letting the past sharpen her purpose rather than dull it. Her first target was a derelict research station orbiting a fractured planet. Rumors had whispered of it being a hub for intelligence on fleet movements, a place abandoned before the galaxy's devastation had reached its doorstep. Leora's shuttle slipped through the debris field like a knife, dodging chunks of metal and shattered satellites. Her heartbeat accelerated not with fear but with the thrill of possibility. Each successful maneuver was proof that she still belonged to this universe. Inside the station, silence ruled, heavy and suffocating. Dust floated in the artificial light, disturbed only by the movement of her boots. Screens flickered sporadically, showing fractured star charts and half-finished reports. Leora felt a pang of reverence for the lives that had once occupied this place. Scientists, engineers, dreamers who had believed they could understand the galaxy. She traced her fingers over the cold panels, letting the data seep into her mind. Every fragment mattered, every record was a key to understanding the wave that had consumed her world. Then she found it, a single encrypted transmission log. The message was incomplete, but enough to hint at a massive fleet moving through sectors previously thought safe. Leora's pulse quickened. These were the forces that had destroyed Asphodel, forces no one dared challenge. Yet for the first time she felt a spark of hope. Knowledge was a weapon, and she now had a blade. Back in her shuttle, Leora reviewed the data over and over. Her eyes burned from staring, but she could not stop. She charted new courses, calculated probabilities, and imagined the possibilities. Each decision carried weight. A misstep could end her journey or her life. And yet the stakes did not terrify her. They invigorated her. The galaxy had taken everything, yes, but not her courage, not her vision. Her solitude gave way to reflection. She thought about what it meant to rebuild. Could a single person, even a survivor like her, change the path of the galaxy? Or was she merely a candle flickering against an endless storm? Leora's resolve hardened. Humanity, she reminded herself, had survived famine, war, and plague. They had endured not because they were unafraid, but because they refused to surrender. She would do the same. Days passed in a rhythm of navigation, observation, and strategy. Her body grew weary, but her mind remained sharp. And then came the first test. An unidentified ship, sleek and dark, materializing on her sensors. It was fast, almost predatory. Leora's pulse quickened, but her hands were steady. She evaded its initial scan, using the asteroid field nearby to mask her movements. Every calculation, every maneuver was a dance between fear and mastery. The ship lingered, waiting, curious. Leora realized it was not just a threat. It was a probe, testing her limits, measuring her capacity to survive. And she smiled. Finally, a challenge worthy of her attention. Humanity's strength was never in yielding to the storm. It was in facing it. Hours later, the probe disengaged, slipping back into the darkness. Leora exhaled, exhaustion mingling with exhilaration. She had survived the first real test beyond the known sectors, but she knew the journey ahead would only grow more dangerous. The galaxy was vast, indifferent, and often cruel, yet it had underestimated her, and she would make it pay, not with vengeance but with reclamation. As she plotted the next course through uncharted space, Leora allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The galaxy had taken much, yes, but it had not broken her spirit. And as long as that ember burned, she would not merely survive. She would rewrite the story of humanity's endurance, one star at a time, because even when the void stretches infinite and silent, the human will can illuminate a path through darkness. The darkness of uncharted space was not empty. It was a graveyard of vanished worlds, drifting debris and the faint echoes of civilizations that had dared to rise. Leora's shuttle moved steadily, guided by the fragmented maps she had pieced together from derelict stations and stolen transmissions. Every star she passed seemed a reminder. The galaxy had taken everything. Yet as her fingers traced the controls, she felt a quiet defiance stir within her. It was during one of these long, isolated nights that she picked up a faint signal, barely distinguishable from the background noise. It was human, fragile, trembling, and desperate. Her heart skipped a beat. Someone had survived. She followed the signal to a small hidden asteroid colony cloaked in shadows and dust. The structures were makeshift, patched together from wreckage but alive with the faint buzz of life. She landed cautiously, scanning for threats, but the inhabitants were wary, not hostile. Children peeked from behind metal panels, eyes wide with curiosity and fear. Adults watched from a distance, hands near tools that could be weapons or instruments of survival. A man approached her, tall and gaunt, with eyes that had seen too much. "Who are you?" he asked, voice wary. "Another scavenger? Another survivor looking to take what little we have left?" I'm Leora, she replied, keeping her tone calm and steady. I'm not here to take. I'm here to understand. And to help. The man studied her, reading the ember of determination in her gaze. Slowly he nodded. Name's Ryan, few come out here. Fewer come with intentions other than selfishness. Leora stepped forward, letting her presence be one of trust rather than threat. I've lost everything, she said quietly. And yet I refuse to let the galaxy decide what remains of us. I want to know who did this, and why. Rian's expression hardened, pain flickering in his eyes. You speak as though knowing will give you power. It won't, not out here, not with what's left. She shook her head, a small, fierce smile breaking through. It will give me direction. Even in darkness we can choose to act. Even when the galaxy takes everything, we can choose what we will protect, and what we will fight to reclaim. He said nothing for a long moment, then gestured toward a central hub where maps and sensors were hastily assembled. If you want answers, you need to see what we've gathered. Inside, Leora found records of raids, fleet movements, and sightings of ships that moved with precision and purpose. Patterns emerged, faint but undeniable, a force sweeping through sectors, erasing worlds, leaving only silence. And yet amidst this terror there was resilience. Survivors had hidden, regrouped, and documented. Humanity, she realized, had refused to vanish entirely. For days, Leora worked with Ryan and the colony. She repaired systems, coordinated patrols, and connected fragments of intelligence, stitching them into a tapestry that hinted at the scale of what they faced. She began to feel the first real sense of belonging since Asphodel, not as someone seeking refuge, but as a spark igniting resistance. But even among survivors, tensions ran high. Trust was fragile as glass under pressure. Some questioned her motives, others doubted her capabilities. Leora felt the weight of scrutiny, yet it did not break her. Instead, it sharpened her resolve. To survive the galaxy's indifference, she would need not only skill and knowledge, but patience, empathy, and the ability to inspire hope. One night, she stood on a viewing platform, gazing at the void. The stars seemed so far away, yet they were more than points of light. They were reminders of what humanity could endure. She thought of her family, of the Asphodel system, and of the lives she had vowed to honor, and she realized something profound. Survival alone was not enough. Humanity had always been defined not by the worlds it lost, but by the courage to reclaim them. Ryan approached quietly. You're different, he said softly. Most would have given up by now. I have no choice, Leora replied, her voice steady. The galaxy took everything, but not my will. That I will never surrender. For the first time since the destruction of her home, she allowed herself to envision the future, not just survival, but action. A plan began to take shape in her mind, a network of survivors, a trail of knowledge, a path toward reclaiming what had been lost. The galaxy had underestimated her, and humanity's defiance was just beginning to shine in the darkness. As she returned to her quarters, Leora felt the ember in her heart flare brighter. She was no longer just a wanderer or a survivor. She was a spark, a beginning. The galaxy could take much, but it could not take the fire within her, and that fire was about to illuminate the path forward. Leora's shuttle hummed as she slipped through the shadows of uncharted space, a solitary thread weaving through the galaxy's vast, indifferent tapestry. Each star she passed seemed like a promise, distant yet persistent. She wasn't searching for adventure. She was searching for truth, and perhaps in that truth, a way to strike back. The intelligence she had gathered with Ryan and his colony pointed toward a series of fleet movements, massive armadas slicing through sectors with terrifying efficiency. Leora's stomach tightened at the scale of it. Whole worlds had vanished, not in war, but in obliteration. Yet the ember within her refused to dim. Humanity's spirit, she reminded herself, was not measured by what it lost, but by the courage to rise again. Her first encounter with the enemy came sooner than expected. A sleek black vessel emerged from the void, scanning, measuring, evaluating. Leora's sensors screamed warnings, and her hands moved instinctively over the controls. She wasn't just running. She was strategizing, reading the patterns of the ship's movements like a dancer anticipating a partner's next step. The ship fired a pulse, a warning, a reminder that the galaxy's predators didn't negotiate. They obliterated. Leora twisted her shuttle, ducking behind a drifting asteroid, Her breath caught in her throat, but she forced herself to think clearly. Panic was the luxury of those who had nowhere to go. She had a purpose. She had a will. She had a future she refused to surrender. Hours passed as she maneuvered through debris fields and narrow gravity wells, avoiding scans and attacks with precision born of desperation and training. Finally, the black vessel disengaged, slipping back into the void. Leora exhaled slowly, her chest aching with relief and exhilaration. The first real test had come, and she had survived. But she knew survival alone was not enough. She needed to understand them, to study their weaknesses, and to find allies who could help her turn defiance into action. She set course for a nearby human outpost, long abandoned but rumored to have caches of intelligence. As she approached, the outpost's skeleton appeared against the stars, a monument to both human ingenuity and vulnerability. Inside, she found old logs, maps, and schematics, proof of fleets, communication lines, and the structure of power that had swept through Asphodel and beyond. Each fragment she salvaged was a spark, a potential weapon against the darkness. Yet even in this solitude, Leora's mind was not free. Memories of Asphodel haunted her relentlessly. The smell of smoke, the screams, the last moment she had clung to her family before the fire consumed everything. She allowed herself to feel not as weakness but as fuel. Every pang of grief, every flash of fear became a sharpened edge in her resolve. The galaxy had taken much, yes, but it could not take her spirit. That, she vowed, would remain unbroken. It was during this time of reflection that she first envisioned the network of resistance. Survivors like Ryan, scavengers like Saren, engineers like Kale. They were not just individuals clinging to life. They were the beginning of something greater. A web of knowledge, strategy, and courage that could resist annihilation. Leora realized that if she could connect the scattered fragments of humanity, they could stand against the very force that had destroyed worlds. Her first action was bold. She transmitted a coded message to a handful of survivor outposts, sharing intelligence about the fleet's movements. Each message was a spark, small but potent, designed to ignite awareness and coordination. She was not just surviving, she was building. And the thought of it made her heart surge with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Humanity had been scattered, yes, but it had never been defeated. Night fell across the void, and Leora gazed at the distant stars, shimmering like embers against black velvet. She whispered to herself, a vow carried in the silence. I will not let this galaxy take everything. Not again. Not ever. In that moment, she understood something vital. The galaxy might crush worlds, erase histories, and consume hope, but it could not crush the human will. That will, her will, was the weapon no fleet, no invader could ever take. And as she prepared to move deeper into uncharted space, Leora knew that the first sparks of defiance had already ignited. The galaxy had taken much, but it had underestimated her. The void stretched endlessly, black and merciless, but Leora's shuttle moved with purpose. Every light on the control panel was a heartbeat, every calculation a decision between life and death. The fleets that had destroyed Asphodel were not idle. They were methodical, precise, almost relentless. And yet Leora felt no fear. She carried a fire the galaxy could not extinguish. Her sensors detected multiple vessels ahead, moving in formation, their dark hulls reflecting distant starlight like shards of obsidian. Leora's mind raced, analyzing trajectories, speeds, and possible weaknesses. This was no longer mere survival. This was a test of strategy, ingenuity, and the indomitable human spirit. She remembered Ryan's words, Saren's cautious gaze, and Kale's calm instructions. Humanity had survived before against impossible odds by thinking, adapting, and refusing to surrender. Leora took a deep breath. She would not only survive this encounter, she would turn it into a statement. Using the asteroid belt nearby as cover, she plotted a path that would let her strike without being detected immediately. Every twist, every turn was calculated, a dance between shadows and light. The first vessel detected her, but she was already moving, already invisible against the backdrop of debris. Her hands flew across the controls, heart synchronized with the shuttle's engines. The first attack came as a pulse of energy slicing through the void. Leora twisted, dodged, and returned fire, not with the goal of destruction, but disruption. A precise strike against the vessel's sensors sent it into disarray, buying her seconds that were worth everything. She maneuvered between two larger ships, skimming past asteroids so close they seemed to scratch the hull. Her breath came in shallow bursts, but her mind was sharp, alert. Every calculation, every decision was a testament to human ingenuity. The galaxy had tried to erase her kind, but ingenuity, creativity, and resilience could not be destroyed. Hours passed in this deadly ballet, the void alive with pulse fire and evasive maneuvers. Leora began to feel the first stirrings of triumph, not in defeating the fleet entirely, but in surviving with purpose, in turning fear into action. She realized then something crucial. The galaxy had underestimated not just her, but humanity. It had assumed survival was the limit. But humanity did not merely survive. It adapted, resisted, and fought, finally, using a combination of calculated maneuvers and clever use of the asteroid field. Leora led one of the enemy vessels into a collision course with a massive fragment of a destroyed moon. The resulting explosion sent shrapnel careening, disabling multiple ships in the fleet. Leora's shuttle remained intact, a testament to careful planning and quick thinking. She exhaled, feeling exhaustion and exhilaration mingle, but victory was only partial. The remaining fleet withdrew, retreating into the shadows, leaving her alone in the aftermath. Leora's shuttle drifted among the floating wreckage, a lone flame in the infinite dark. She surveyed the destruction she had caused, not as a triumph, but as proof that resistance was possible. Even against overwhelming force, humanity could strike back. Her mind turned to the next steps. She could not fight the galaxy alone. She needed allies, survivors scattered across sectors, those who had endured and hidden. She began plotting communication lines, strategies, and supply routes, turning the spark of a single defiant survivor into the beginning of a coordinated resistance. As she set course back toward the hidden colony, Leora allowed herself a moment of reflection. The galaxy had taken worlds, erased civilizations, and left darkness in its wake. But it had not taken this. The fire within her heart, the ember of human will that refused to be extinguished. She whispered to herself, steady and unyielding, "I will not stop. I will not yield. I will rewrite the story the galaxy tried to end." Leora knew that greater battles awaited, that the forces that had destroyed Asphodel would not forget her defiance. But she also knew this: humanity's strength was not in fleets or firepower alone. It was in resolve, creativity, and the refusal to surrender even when all seemed lost. The galaxy had taken much, yes, but it had never taken her courage. It had never taken her vision. And as her shuttle cut through the void toward allies, toward hope, toward the beginning of resistance, Leora felt the ember in her heart flare brighter than ever. Because in the end, the galaxy could take everything, but it could never take her will to rewrite it. The stars stretched endlessly before Leora as her shuttle sailed through uncharted space, a lone thread against the black canvas of the galaxy. She had survived fleets, navigated the void, and sparked the first embers of resistance, yet the weight of her journey pressed against her chest. Every world lost, every friend and family erased was a ghost she carried. And still she pressed forward, driven by the fire that refused to be extinguished. The hidden colonies and scattered survivors she had begun to unite were waiting. Each had endured horrors the galaxy had wrought. Each had faced the same question Leora had once asked herself. What does it mean to keep living when everything is taken? She had found an answer, not merely survival, but action. Not merely existence, but defiance. As she approached the central gathering, the signal flared, a coordinated response from every outpost she had contacted. Ships repaired, patched, and modified drifted toward her like an armada of hope. Leora felt a surge of pride and resolve. Humanity had been scattered, yes, but it had never been broken, and now it would rise again. Her plan was audacious. Intercept the remnants of the fleet that had destroyed Asphodel, strike decisively, and show the galaxy that human ingenuity and will could not be erased. Every ship, every pilot, every engineer understood the stakes. They were survivors, yes, but also witnesses to the power of determination. They carried the fire of humanity forward, and Leora was its spark. The encounter was inevitable. The enemy fleet emerged from the void, black and menacing, a wave of destruction that had erased countless worlds. Yet this time they met more than a lone shuttle. They met a network of humanity, coordinated, resilient, and unyielding. Leora led the charge, navigating through the chaos with a precision born of grief, loss, and relentless purpose. Explosions lit the void, a firework of defiance against the endless black. Leora's shuttle danced between enemy vessels, each move a calculated strike to disrupt, confuse, and outmaneuver. She watched as the fleets she had inspired executed maneuvers that no single human could achieve alone. Every action was a statement. Humanity refused to vanish quietly. Hours passed in a blur of strategy, courage, and the raw, chaotic energy of battle. Leora's heart pounded, but she felt no fear. The ghosts of Asphodel and countless other lost worlds surged within her, fueling each decision, each maneuver. This was not just combat. It was remembrance, defiance, and reclamation. By the time the dust of battle settled, the enemy fleet had been forced to retreat, shattered and disoriented. Leora's forces had sustained losses, but they had survived, and more importantly, they had proven something vital. The galaxy could take much, but it could never extinguish the will of those who refused to surrender. In the silence that followed, Leora floated above the void, gazing at the distant, trembling stars. She thought of her family, her homeworld, and all that had been lost. And she realized something profound. The galaxy had taken much, yes, but it had underestimated humanity's most potent weapon, its spirit. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, yet it carried across the void of her thoughts, unwavering and resolute. We will endure. We will rebuild. We will rise. Ryan, Saren, and Kale appeared beside her, their eyes reflecting relief, awe, and something deeper, hope. Leora smiled, not with triumph, but with understanding. Humanity's story was not one of quiet surrender. It was a story of fire, of persistence, of courage born in the darkest moments. Together, they plotted the next steps, reconnecting scattered colonies, rebuilding lost worlds, and tracing the remaining enemy forces. Each plan was a promise, each strategy a testament to the human will. Leora understood that the journey ahead would not be easy. There would be trials, losses, and moments when hope seemed fragile. But she also understood this. Humanity's strength was not in ships or weapons alone. It was in choice, in resolve, in the refusal to yield even when all seemed lost. As she gazed out at the stars, Leora allowed herself one final thought, clear and unwavering. The galaxy had taken everything from her, home, family, peace, certainty, but it had failed to take the one thing that mattered most, her will. That will burned brighter than any star, guiding her, humanity, and the countless survivors toward a future they would claim with courage, intelligence, and relentless determination. And in that infinite expanse, where darkness once seemed to reign unchallenged, Leora's voice rang out, a declaration, a promise, and a truth. We endure, we rise. We rewrite the galaxy. The stars seemed to shimmer in response, distant yet alive, as if the universe itself acknowledged that one ember, no matter how small, could illuminate the darkness forever. The galaxy had taken much, but it could never take her will to rewrite it.